Another beautiful day on this learning platform. Welcome! In this video, I will discuss the top 10 incredible smells in the world. Make sure to subscribe to our channel for more daily interesting and helpful contents. Let's get started. Let me educate you that every city has its own aroma. In a new room view with a view, E.M. Forster made this statement. As a hobbyist perfumer, I am fascinated by scents, especially historical odors. It was a rare and valuable vial of L. Oregon perfume from 1905 that convinced me to pursue the hobby. I immediately smelled the aroma that prompted a newspaper correspondent to exclaim, quote, "All of Paris smells like El Oregon," unquote. Upon opening the box in which it had been delivered, the perfume had barely leaked. It was an ecstatic occasion. I was smelling the world as ancient people once had. The men who created this fragrance were now mere footnotes on the fading pages of history, but I was now a part of their legacy. Since that day, perfume and the aromas of the world have been my sole preoccupation. I began creating my own fragrances after acquiring all of the rarest and most peculiar perfumes and ingredients I could find. I have even published online a number of my perfume formulations. I devoted my entire attention to comprehending odors. That's what Forster said. Number 10. Space. Since space is a vacuum, it should be odorless, and yet it does. First, there is a massive disk of gas with a sweet, fruity, rum-like odor in the center of the galaxy. The chemical is called ethyl formate. Why does it exist? No one is aware. According to astronaut reports, other aromas of space are also related to food, with some describing them as sulfurous and meaty. Another astronaut, Thomas Jones, reported, quote, "When you reprecise the airlock and remove your suit, there is a distinct odor of ozone, a faint, acrid odor, similar to burnt gunpowder or the ozone odor of electrical equipment," unquote. The science officer of the International Space Station, Don Petit, had his own observations. Quote, "The best word I can use to describe is metallic, a rather delightful sweet metallic sensation. It reminded me of the college summers I spent repairing heavy equipment for a small timber company with an ARC welding torch. It brought to mind sweet-smelling welding vapors. This is the odor of outer space," unquote. Obviously, in a vacuum, you cannot smell anything directly, but there are millions of particles floating around that do have a fragrance, and these observations are made when these particles adhere to the astronaut's suit or enter the airlocks as a part of their training for prospective astronauts. NASA has attempted to recreate the smell on Earth. Number 9. Sun-dry planets. While we are discussing distant space, what about the planets? Due to the chemical composition of their atmospheres, we can approximate the odors of various planets due to sulfuric acid clouds in its atmosphere. Venus smells like rotten eggs, while sulfur dioxide and hydrogen sulfide gives Mars and Uranus the same odor. Because each layer of Jupiter's atmosphere is composed of various chemicals, the scent varies depending on your location. In some layers, you cannot scent the pleasant bitter almonds due to the unpleasant hydrogen cyanide, while other layers near the top, you can smell the foul odor of ammonia. Cleaning products. This almond-like odors of cyanide occurs naturally in flowers, such as jasmine in the form of benzyl cyanide, which is essentially innocuous. The atmospheres of the remaining planets are composed primarily of odorless gases, so they lack a distinct odor. Number 8. Death. Acetone is one of the most prevalent odors emanating from the dying individual, the very fruity smelling chemical that is used as nail polish remover. In some instances, however, this is combined with unpleasant odors caused by the specific illness of the dying person. Once death has occurred, the body begins to decompose, releasing a number of compounds with rather apt names. Cadaverine and putrescine are the first to emerge, and as their names imply, they emit a putrid odor. Why does our body produce these chemicals? Some believe that it is an evolutionary trait designed to serve as a hazard signal to others. It is believed to activate the mammalian flight or fight mechanism. Hydrogen sulfide smells like rotten eggs. Scatol smells like feces. Methane thiol smells like rotten cabbage. And dimethyl sulfide smells like garlic. A veritable brew of foul vapors. Would it disgust you to learn that these are all used as food additives and in numerous perfumes? A small amount of odor enhances the beauty of an otherwise sterile mixture of components. In nature, these noxious substances are present in flowers to attract insects, and they also tease us. Number 7. Versailles Palace. First, the much maligned French Queen Marie Antoinette did not say, quote, "let them eat cake," unquote. I hesitate to mention it because every website in the world has now replicated our 2007 list of historical false foods, in which we thought that the internet this fact. But 12 years later, we have a new audience, so it's worth repeating just in case. Queen Marie Antoinette and her spouse, King Louis XVI, resided in the Palace of Versailles. It is a significant and magnificent location that I urge you to visit on your next trip to France. We all envision a life filled with enticing perfumes, pastries, princess, and pompadours, but we never consider the other two P's, peace and poop. The 18th century plumbing was inadequate, and Versailles Palace had few built-in amenities. Flush toilets were in the royal apartments only. Therefore, what nature called the only option was a small porcelain container known as bordelot. Women lacked undergarments, so they tied their gowns together and went to town. However, the palace's size can sometimes catch individuals off guard. In such situations, a calm nook would suffice. After all, servants would eventually clear up after you, combined with the smoke from failing chimneys and the neglect of overworked servants. The stately palace of Versailles emitted a foul odor. Number 6. Roman Colosseum. Spectators at the Roman Colosseum were treated to a vast array of entertainment, including gladiator battles and live animal encounters with exotic animals. Moreover, during later Christian persecutions, Christians were murdered by a variety of means, including being torn apart by wild animals. The Romans, however, were quite delicate and disliked the smell of blood, so the Colosseum employed a very ingenious solution. The purpose of owning, called the velarium, above the heads of the paying visitors was to shield them from the sun and repel any rain that might fall. In addition, ingeniously concealed tube would continuously spray perfumed water over the awning to partially mask the stench of death and to keep spectators' head moist and cool. These were supplemented by statue-shaped fountains that also released aromatic water. The primary components of the perfume were saffron and verbena, which was recently banned by the European Union for use in any products that come into contact with human skin. Number 5. Drugs. Drugs has been utilized in their natural form of millennia. Not until the 19th and 20th centuries were we persuaded by drugs companies to abandon them in favor of synthetic medications. Most of us probably could not identify the odor of a drug if it is struck us in the face, except perhaps marijuana, as few people had had a chance to not inhale that at least once. Here is a brief list of common substances and their respective aromas. When smoked, opium emits a sweet, faintly burnt marshmallow aroma. Heroin, when burnt, emits a very pungent vinegar odor. The higher the quality, the less the odor. But there will always be some odor. Heroin is manufactured from opium using a process that produces vinegar as a byproduct. The odor of vinegar is what drug dogs are pursuing. Cocaine predominantly emits the aroma of methyl benzoate, a floral biochemical that gives tuberose its rich aroma and feijoas their distinct flavor. In addition to vinegar, drug sniffing canines can detect this chemical. Number 4. Titanic. In the early hours of the morning of April 15, 1912, the Titanic's massive, shattered carcass plummeted the ocean floor. That night, over 1,300 souls were lost. Fresh varnish, paint, and freshly sewn timber were the first scents of a passenger encountered upon boarding this ship. In those days, lead was still used to create paint, which also contained a significant quantity of linseed oil. On that faithful evening, the first-class menu included duck, lamb, and beef, all of those which would have given off enticing aromas of roasting. The famous French perfume house, Guerlain, had just released El Huer Bleu, a bluish hour, in the same year. Velvety, soft, and romantic, it is a fragrance of bluish duck and anticipation of night before the first stars appear in the sky. It was expensive and in high demand, and many women in first class would have undoubtedly detected its scent. The fragrance can still be purchased today, and there is no doubt that it still evokes memories of that fateful night. Number 3. Ancient Egyptian Museum. If you have ever visited a Catholic church, you are likely familiar with the scent of frankincense and myth. But are there the primary components in the most widely used church incense? The ancient Egyptians utilized the same resins in their templates, so the fragrance of incense was likely what greeted you upon entering. Similarly to us, the Egyptians adorned their churches with blossoms. The most prevalent were lotus flowers, marsh vegetation, and reeds. The fragrance of lotus is intensively fruity, and while the cloying sweetness would have dominated, the marshy plants would have added an undertone of water and soil. Other fragrant flowers would have included jasmine with its hypnotic, feculent odor in indole, sweet blooming roses, and the intense aroma of fresh mandrake reminiscent of desiccated tobacco. Number 2. The Holocaust. For those who witnessed the cremation of bodies in the camps, the odor was unlike anything they had ever smelt before. When meat is prepared for consumption, we scent the simple sear of the flesh. The opposite is true when a human orgasm is burned. The daily stench in the concentration camps would have consisted predominantly of a beef-like odor from burning flesh and a pork-like odor from human fat. This would be accompanied by the noxious fragrances of sulfur from burning hair and nails, a coppery metal odor from burning blood and iron-rich organs, and spinal fluid which burns like a perfume-like sickly sweet musky odor. It is an odor so pungent that it can almost be tasted. Number 1. Sanctity. His Holiness emanates a variety of distinct ways. For some saints, it is a stench that begins to emanate from their bodies after death, frequently in conjunction with incorruptibility. For others, it is an unexplained sweet scent that they exhale during their lifetime. And for some, it is in the form of sweet-smelling liquids that seeps from thumb containing the saint's body. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one.